Hello, it's 2:30 on a Wednesday afternoon at Kincoid campus. I'm Georgie, I'm from the exotic country of England, and I'm joined by three fellow sports broadcasting students today. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Neve, and I'm from the Valleys, my stake to be specific.
Hi, I'm Ayana, and I'm from Barbados, very, very far Barbados.
Hi, I'm Jay, and I'm natural from Ecuador, but I grew up in Spain.
And today you're listening to Met Sport Radio, the show that is going to bring you the most updated Cardiff Metropolitan sports news, whilst also discussing current sporting topics. Before we update you on the latest Bucks fixtures, that's all to come, one topic that's been on our news feeds this week has been the Commonwealth Games, which we are going to discuss.
Yeah, so despite the speculation earlier on in the year that Wales will be the ones to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games, it has been confirmed that the Scottish Government have agreed to provide the requisite support to Commonwealth Games Scotland in order for Glasgow to become the multi-sported event. This will be the fourth time Scotland have hosted the Games and will be held between the 23rd of July and the 2nd of August. 2026 will actually see a different structure to the event after announcing that many of the sports featured in previous years have been dropped, including hockey, cricket and rugby sevens. This begs the question of why they've been excluded. Is it due to lack of budget, lack of facilities, or is it a combination of both?
Do we think the Commonwealth Games could have been held in Wales, and could we have accommodated for those sort of sports? I feel personally like we could have. I feel like Cardiff especially has a lot of facilities. What do you guys think?
I agree. From visiting Cardiff and Wales as a whole, I have seen the amount, as you said, of facilities that you guys have. It would have been able to host the Commonwealth Games with all of the arenas and principality, that's always there, that's always able to hold anything with the amount of seating they have, the history it has as well. And going on to these sports, you have hockey, I'm a little biased to that, but there are hockey fields all over. Even if you did not have the facility or the
budget, let's say.
Yes. Even if you didn't have that, I think that it is with these sports that are long-standing sports and have the history behind them and are known for being in Commonwealth, I think that it was probably a better location would, as you said, would have been Wales. I agree.
Lovely. I completely agree with you, and I think it's nice to hear from an international student about Wales and about what you think about the facilities, because I don't know, I've been here for 5 years, and Neve, I'm sure you've been in Cardiff a lot, but it's nice to hear from people from overseas that would be able to hold such events.
Yeah, I feel like we're quite accommodating as a country as well. I feel like people would feel welcome in our space. But just to play devil's advocate, when it's a match day, all the hotels have sold out. So I feel like a lot of chunk of money will have to go towards hotels and accommodation, not just for the athletes, but everyone who's coming to watch, spectators, family. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it is an interesting topic to discuss, really, and something I feel like we should all look more into.
And also, if we remember all what happened with the athletes' villa back in Paris Games or the Olympic Games, it's kind of an interesting topic to talk about, because you all saw the cardboard beds and how the athletes were accommodated in Paris. So
yeah, hopefully Wales might do it a little bit better than that.
We do have mattresses in Wales, just saying.
So we spoke to two athletes who have been affected by the news a bit differently. Earlier today, we spoke to Georgia Hellerman, who is a fellow sports broadcasting student with us, and also a Welsh international player. And let's see what she had to say about it.
Have you ever competed in the Commonwealth Games yourself?
No, I haven't actually ever competed in the Commonwealth Games, but hopefully with netball being included in this now, that I'll be able to work towards that, and that's my next aim then in the future. Yeah, I think it's really good exposure for netball to be included in the Commonwealth Games. We've seen it improve massively especially since England won. a couple of years back. So I think that's really helped the game grow. And this year, with it being counted as a professional sport environment, I think that's going to really help it. It is disappointing that it's not in the Olympic Games yet, but hopefully with this being included in the Commonwealth, it'll hopefully then get us to walk towards it being included in the Olympics.
So, speaking about that, what advice would you give to someone, like a younger player who actually has aspirations to play in the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, like me, I want to be involved in the Commonwealth Games. So seeing people like my age get involved with it just makes me like want to get involved more. So just keep pushing, keep driving, and keep improving. And like me, hopefully I was a young girl who wanted to do it, and hopefully now with it being included in the Commonwealth Games, that everyone else can have an opportunity to do it as well.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, do we agree that netball is a good sport to still be in the Commonwealth Games? What are we thinking?
I personally didn't know that netball was a thing until I came to the UK myself.
Okay, interesting.
And
So there's not much netball in Spain?
never heard at all.
Okay.
And because in Spain, the two major sports are football and basketball. Basketball capitalizes practically everything related to netball. So netball is very non-existent and seen. So hearing from her perspective right now, I was like, okay, so in the UK, I've seen and I know that there's quite a big scene in netball. And I didn't understand why they didn't include on the Commonwealth the netball itself, since it's known in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's in it, all right, that this makes sense. I understand what she has to be kind of, looking forward to participate, because it hasn't been, it's now in, and it has a environment behind the game.
Mm-hmm.
So should be a good opportunity.
I will say though as well, I know we as in Barbados, we send a netball team to Commonwealth almost every time we go.
Yeah.
And it is disheartening to see that although we do send the team, we will not be able to participate this time, because at least in netball, because that's something we put a lot behind sending our netballers to Commonwealth Games. It is a big milestone for them. They work towards it for most of their careers, and they do their best when they get there. So coming from the outside as a smaller Commonwealth entity as Barbados, and I don't want to speak for the rest of the Caribbean, but I know that other countries like Trinidad and Jamaica, they send teams there too. So when you're not including games that are relevant to the other parts of the Commonwealth, it could be an issue to the wider group.
Yes. Interestingly, we have a international Cayman Islands rugby sevens player who's also from the Caribbean, who was speaking about how rugby sevens is not going to be included in the Commonwealth, and I think he says similar things to you, where he says that smaller countries are being a little bit pushed out of the Commonwealth Games and how that's a little bit unfair. But yeah, let's hear what he has to say.
Hi Tommy, it's so lovely to have you on the phone. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background in rugby sevens.
So I'm Tommy Kehoe. I'm 22 years old, play sevens with the Cayman Islands. We play in the Rugby Americas North tournament every year. Play against teams like Jamaica, Mexico, Bermuda, Bahamas, Guyana. I've been playing sevens since maybe under 19s, so maybe for 6-7 years now.
Is it possible for you to play sevens at the next Commonwealth Games?
Cayman do have the chance to qualify for it if we win our regional tournament.
In your opinion, why do you think rugby sevens is not included in the Commonwealth?
Well, I don't know. I can't think of anything why they leave out sevens, because I thought it was quite an inclusive sport, give everyone different opportunities.
And how do you feel in general about this decision?
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing that, because it gives us smaller countries the opportunity to compete in bigger tournaments against the other nations and give us a different experience from what we're used to, instead of just competing against the same teams within our region every year. We have the chance to then compete against teams from all across the world.
Ayanna, so I'm sure you can relate to that, and that is kind of what you were picking up on before. I just want to still talk about that point, because I think it's quite a big topic, and I believe personally that smaller countries should be represented in as many sports as we can. Yeah, and hockey is still in the Commonwealth Games. And I know you know a lot about hockey. Do you know if your home country's sending a hockey team at all?
We don't usually send for hockey, which is a little sad for me, but I understand why. We are not top performers in the wider region, including the Americas. So we have places like Argentina and Paraguay and Uruguay in our bracket. So usually we would get pushed out a little earlier. But when it comes to the Caribbean and CSC, when we're competing with teams like Jamaica and Cuba, Dominican Republic, we do perform. But as Tommy is saying in his interview, that it gives the Commonwealth Games gives us, the Caribbean, our smaller nations, the ability to participate in a wider tournament where we can perform and play against other members of the group, because it is essential for us to develop in a way where we can not only get to make contacts with the other teams and come together as the sport or the Commonwealth, but it is letting us be able to perform and to open up our network as the sport. So he's talking about rugby, and I will be talking about hockey and other places, about netball and stuff.
But as you know, there's only a certain amount of sports that have been left out of the Commonwealth Games. We still have athletics, para-athletics, swimming, para-swimming, artistic gymnastics. Do you feel as though the Commonwealth as a whole felt that there would be enough exposure for different countries within those sports? Because I know rugby gets a lot of exposure as it is. There's loads of different rugby leagues. So do you feel like that's maybe some of the reasoning behind it, was that they've chosen core sports that actually give enough exposure to everyone?
I would say it would be, it depends on how you look at it though, because it is more of core sports towards their view.
Yeah.
So I agree with the athletics and the gymnastics. That's always good. And the inclusion of para-athletes, we always go for that. We always think that that's a good step to have. And we actually enjoy and appreciate the inclusion of the group. So I understand what you're saying, but there are also sports like there is wheelchair hockey and disability hockey, I think, as well too. So there are other areas, but I guess if you're trying to keep it succinct and trying to keep it within the time span and within the budget, because I know that they said that they didn't want to overreach the allowance from the population. Okay. But yes, I agree though that the sports is the inclusion of all the versions of the sports is very important. But no, I think that it's time that we take it to the Cardiff Mets Bucks news.
This Wednesday is full of sport in action, with multiple Bucks teams competing all across the UK. Our men's football team kicked off at 1 p.m. against the University of Bath in the hopes of redemption from some hard losses and go into the new season with a fresh slate. Here's what player Barney Sodi had to say on the matter.
For the time being, it's just to get that sort of momentum back, short term, and then longer term, depending on the next couple of results. It's a really short season with only 10 fixtures. So if you lose the next couple, then you're probably starting to think about staying in the league, which I've got no doubt that we're good enough to do.
In rugby news, Archers RFC take on Nottingham Uni away, and captain Ben Murphy is more than confident that our boys can take the win this afternoon.
I don't think they're the most physical team in the world, so I think we can match them there, but I think everything they can do, we can do better. So.
Finally, our women's Archers basketball team are looking forward to a UEL face-off at 4 p.m. Player Kiara Stewart spoke on her prospects for the match.
They're a hard team, they're tough, so just being able to get better each and every game and find what we need to work on will be the main goal.
Neve Davis, Met Sport TV.
Thank you, Neve, for that latest update on our Bucks fixtures this Wednesday. In other news, we are now going to talk about the Arch Her event that was going on earlier this morning at Kingswood campus. The event hosts educational workshops that promote and equalise sports for women. So my fellow broadcasting students that are here with me now, Ayanna and Jay, are here and are lucky enough to have attended this. So guys, chat me through this morning. How was it? What did you learn? Let me know.
I mean, it was an interesting speech about how nowadays women's sports are being more inclusive and how they can work towards getting it even better. They were focusing, for example, we had a sports bra brand that was one of the one that they performed best in different tests, even against big brands like Adidas and Nike, just because they were run by women and they were actually like, all right, these big brands are doing their way, but we want to be specialized just for women because we understand how they perform, we understand their bodies, and we wanted to actually do it different and properly.
It's interesting you say that because we watched the documentary A Bump in the Road about the rugby player Abby Ward, and she was saying that that's something that isn't really thought about when it comes to like clothing and athleisure, is the fact that maybe women might be breastfeeding whilst training and they need like the correct equipment and it's just not available. So it's really interesting that that was a point that was brought up today as well as something that we've been learning about as well.
We're going to have Lucy, the owner of the brand, because I interviewed her later on. She's going to have a couple of quotes I took from her. She's going to speak about it. And also in my case, I know a couple, because I played in the Spain Youth Academy in Valencia Football Club. I've got a couple of female athletes that are playing now professional football myself. I know them and they spoke to me about the lack of equipment, the lack of women-specific clothes for sports that are on the market. And I was just like, oh, now that there's events like this that are helping to visualize the problem, that's what we need to solve these kind of issues, but not just to speak about it, to actually put effort on to invest and find the solutions.
Yeah, I know that especially like women's football, they've now designed like special women's football boots, and I know women can get like ACL injuries a lot easier than a man can. So women playing football would just have to wear men's boots and then they'd become injured and not be able to do their profession or play for fun, whatever they're doing. So I think even that is a very new thing, but also a massive thing, because if we can reduce injuries for women, I think that's a great thing and really exciting moving forward.
Yeah, speaking of injuries, there was actually a study that said that doctors don't know enough about nutrition when it comes to females in sport. So it actually means that they don't know how to advise nutritionally and like with calories, like how much they need to consume, which means that their bones are getting damaged, hence like leading to more injuries. And it's ridiculous that we've not thought of something like that before, because female athletes have been about, for a long time. So it's mad that 2024 is the year that it's all coming out.
They talked about it as well because of the way they collect data for women athletes. It's not about they don't collect it, but they don't actually use it. Like, for example, let's say in basketball, for a basketball game of a men's performance for the NBA, you've got a group of analytics talking about it, looking at the stats, looking about the data, looking about the nutrition, and they will actually reflect on the stats they collected. But in the case of women's sports, they might have a study about how important it is to regulate and control the women's periods for the athlete's performance, but for example, the coach cannot explain to the players why for them it's important to track their periods and how that affects them on the performance.
Interesting, yeah, very interesting. So you mentioned you got some interviews.
Yeah.
Who was that from? What were their backgrounds? And let's hear them.
We interviewed Zoe Smalley, a former athlete and coach, and during her speech she mentioned something about the struggles she encountered as a woman stepping into coaching and the difference she encountered between coaching men and women.
So knowing that representation is really important, there aren't that many black women who are coaching, I kind of took it upon myself to go, you know what, people are living this narrative of if you can't see it, then you can't be it. I kind of was on the flip side of I couldn't see it, so I wanted to be it. So I felt like I kind of had to leave the ladder down and inspire the next generation of coaches to say, look, there is somebody here, come and coach. And it was a complete learning curve for me. It was a complete step away from what I was used to. I've been involved in sport for 2 decades now, and actually it was so eye-opening, and it taught me a lot about myself as well, about how I had just become complacent in my coaching, being in sort of male-dominated environments, kind of how I motivated them was very, very different to what needed to be done when I was motivating the women within the game. I've never had the holistic side of coaching athletes, because people just, you know, the guys that used to coach us used to come up, I used to coach them and then go home, whereas the women would like to kind of stay and talk and offload problems and decompress after a long day, because I was relatable to them. So that's been the biggest learning curve, I think, for me, transitioning from coaching predominantly men to coaching women.
And we also interviewed Lucy, the co-founder of Phoebe, a brand specialized in sports bras. And during her speech, she mentioned something about the stigma attached to talking about the women's body parts and due to the nature of her business.
So I think using like correct language and being brave with that is the key. Making it silly and making everyone laugh is sort of a quick fire way of maybe getting a round of applause at a conference, or putting something on LinkedIn that gets loads of likes. But actually all it does is create a much bigger problem down the line, because it just detaches women from what's going on.
And also due to a case I personally know from a classmate back in high school, Sara Medina, a professional footballer in the Spanish second tier, I wanted to know what was her opinion about the lack of a specific and a specialized women's sporting clothing and equipment.
Me and Charlotte run our business. We've done it ourselves. We are self-funded. We've had some money from Innovate UK, not a lot. Don't have the deep pockets of Nike and Lululemon. They could have fixed this, and they haven't. And I think it's inexcusable, actually, that it just takes a bit more thought, like care and time. And the problem the brands will have is they then go forth to the factories. The factories will say, well, this is our size chart, so you have to fit to our size chart. And the answer is no, we're going to do it our way, because this is what we know works. It all comes down to money. It all comes down to where's the exposure, where is the money? And male sport has like trailblazed this with sponsorship. But the world is changing. Like, we are filling stadiums. Women are filling the Arsenal stadium regularly. We are on like primetime television. The appetite is high. So I do think it is changing. I think the world is moving more towards embracing and empowering and funding women's sport better.
I really appreciated this event. I thought that it was very informative. As an athlete myself, I know these issues that they've been through. I've seen them every day, going to training and having players not being able to perform as they usually would, even like during the warm-ups, where you would hear coaches, they're like, what's happening to you today? And they don't know. And then when the girls try to explain it to them, they're like, okay, go to the manager. Let me go and train your others. But I think that just to not make the topic taboo, when you're talking about female anatomy and just in general, how the body works, how it would affect the sport, the performance in sport, how sport would affect the body in general. I think that these sessions are important, and I really commend Wales, the institution, and then Cardiff Met for putting on something like this. This is the second year it has been going, and it is very informative, and it's getting better and bigger each year. I think that it should continue it, and others should pick up steam on it, because it is very good. It is essential for the growth of sport in general. And I think that it is very important that we continue with this sort of conferences and this sort of information and just gathering of data and actually using it, as Jay said, where we can create stuff like Lucy is doing with her ZB brassiers and equipment and things like that.
Who would you say would be the target audience to go to an event like this? Because obviously, Jay, like male presenting individual, did you feel like it was beneficial for you to go?
Absolutely. For example, on the other way around, Zoe said that she can count the difference in terms of coaching men and women, in terms of like, for us as men, we like, all right, we train, we go home, and we just it's nothing more about that. Just like just go and train and perform. But for women, it's more about, all right, we train, but we never want to have a connection with our coach and stuff. That's something new for us as well, and we weren't aware of it until, for example, in my case, she mentioned it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We are different, so we have different needs. In my case, could be because when I was playing football, as soon as I left the field, I would say, all right, bye, and I will go home. But for you girls, might be a different needs and how different needs to be addressed, those needs.
Yeah, definitely. I'm also really just proud to be a part of Cardiff Met, and the fact that they can take a stand and like put themselves out there and make sure women are being represented, and also being like shown and like being able to share like these slightly taboo topics which shouldn't be taboo. And I feel like because of institutions like Met, we can normalise it, and that's really exciting. As like a woman, I want to be able to do that, and especially in sport, which is typically like male dominated and very male associated.
Yeah.
So I feel like I am very proud to be at Met and to be part of an institution that is making sure women are accounted for.
It's mad that this year's Cardiff Clash was the first double header, really, because it's like the women have never had like that exposure in terms of BUCS rugby and such a big event, and the amount of people that went, and it was such a like big day. It is really interesting that it's only this year that's come across. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a
100%.
For example, in my opinion, with the Cardiff Clash, that comes from a male perspective, I would say, but I kind of understand why this was the first time, since back in a couple years ago, not about no one, but it was less. The awareness wasn't there for the girls' sports. Now that we've seen that the girls' sports are picking up interest and people is going to the events, now you have the opportunity. You show that you will get people through the doors, that people is interested. Now it's the time to keep going and investing. Now is the time. Back in the day, it wasn't the audience. Now it is.
Yeah, it's like the Women's World Cup as well, coming to the country in next year, I think. And it's even that. I have listened to a podcast recently with 2 England rugby women's players on, and they were saying how they're already selling out tickets. Like, they've had to stop pre-sales because the stadiums are being filled, and that is just really positive. Also moving forward, and again growing women's rugby.
Yeah, August to September 2025.
There you go. Next year, got it right.
Next year.
On to quickly before we wrap up the show. We literally have 3 minutes left, but we're just going to talk about some future upcoming things as well. So me and Neve actually are heading down to the Welsh Sport Hall of Fame event tomorrow evening.
Yeah, so it's a charitable organisation created to commemorate the sporting achievements and preserve the artefacts of Welsh athletes. So if you're proud to be Welsh, then that's something to look out for on social media. I'm sure Metsport TV will cover some of that on their Instagram, so go and give it a follow. But I'm really looking forward to it because it's nice that Wales gets the exposure that it does and celebrates Welsh athletes, because when you're part sometimes of a Team GB, you don't really get the credit you deserve. So yeah, anyone else got anything coming up that they want to share or something they've done this week?
I mean, in my case, for example, when you have the press conference with Chiara, I was commenting that game, and honestly, it was the first time in the UK. She came in literally on Monday, couldn't train until Wednesday. So even though from my perspective, I was like, I mean, someone coming from the Spanish league, it's a league that is technically more competitive than the UK one. She mentioned something like, even though I can do better, I couldn't, because I literally showed up on Monday, trained on Wednesday how I could, and played a game on Saturday.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we're going to have to wrap up the show there. I really hope everyone listening enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts or opinions on what we've spoken about today, please feel free to tweet at us and let us know your opinions, and we can share them around. It's at CMet Sport TV. Any women get involved? Any opinions on the Commonwealth Games. But yeah, we have really enjoyed our first radio show and hopefully lots more to come. Yeah, see you very soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.